Namaskar and good morning. My name is Venkateshan. I'm the regional director from the India Tourism in Mumbai. And today I welcome you all to the 69th session of the Deko Apna Desh webinar series. We started this in April 14th of 2020, and it's been a long journey where we have taken our viewers to the incredible places and incredible experiences. We all know the diversity that India has and how varied the food is in every state, every community, every culture. In fact, food in India is a vibrant assortment of unaccountable dishes. It is distinctly characterized by subtle and sophisticated use of spices, grains, fruits, vegetables that are all grown in the country, home to people of many religions who come from a plethora of cultural backgrounds. The food culture of the country has been influenced by all of them, including the foreigners who came in. And today, our topic of the webinar is secrets and delights of Indian cuisine. And to introduce the subject and our presenter, I invite the Additional Director General, Ministry of Tourism, Ms. Rupinder Brar. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Venkat. Namaste, everyone, and welcome once again to another episode of Dekho Apna Desh. We couldn't be doing a more interesting episode, I think, as the winter has set in and we all need those little more calories now to feel warmer. So, we have with us today walking through the different secrets and delights. She has termed it secrets and delights, and she's going to tell you the secrets and the delights of Indian cuisine. I'm sure we all know that in any part of India, if you go, the kind of cuisine that has evolved by the amalgamation of various influences and also from the indigenous population, not just in the ingredients, but the spices, the method of cooking, the method of fermenting, saving. There's just so much to learn in the Indian cuisine. And there is just no one, I think, that I know around the world who does not have something out of the Indian food which they would keep going back to. But of course, we all have our soul foods, which also she's going to talk about. And she's going to talk about a lot of things. So, who do we have today? A very unusual presenter. Aruna Sharma ji is herself a civil servant. She's from the 1982 batch of the IAS. She's from the Madhya Pradesh cadre. And we were talking before the session that how did she manage to wear so many hats? But I think there I'll be slightly partial to us, the gender, that I think if the women just have it a little more in them to multitask and do a little extra. Well, she grew up in Bhopal, went for college to Hyderabad, and then, as destiny would so have it, the cadre that she got allotted after joining the IAS was also Madhya Pradesh. So she was back to Bhopal, and of course, in the districts and the. It's tough, viewers. It's really tough going to the dust and the grime. But then, at the end, I'm sure she'll be telling us about it. How satisfying it is to go through the different layers of development. She worked as a collector. She worked with the MP Dairy Department. She was with the rural development in the central government. She later retired as Secretary, Steel and Information Technology in the Government of India. Really, really important decision making happens at these positions. These affect our lives. And so we are so proud to have you with us, Madam Sharma. And what is interesting today is that the subject that she's now working on is so very different from one would normally not associate a full time working woman having that kind of time. So I think that's hats off to her that she has managed to keep her interest alive and in such an organized fashion. But while she's doing all this, she's also written books. She has a book on the resource convergence mantra model, the beneficiary. She also has work on mainstreaming of resource convergence in policy making, program design, and execution. FAO has also published her work on food security. Her latest work is the book You Adorate Game Changer for Inclusive Growth for Public Representatives. Her article on the Samagra Anti Poverty Program in Madhya Pradesh, integrating household data, overcoming silo problems, and leaving nobody behind. Now, that's really technical stuff, what viewers. And so it's just such a pleasure to have you with us, madam. But cooking, a hobby that transformed to spread consciousness of dismantling the fads of, as she puts it, quote unquote, no zone to that of eat all. And let me also tell you, for all that you heard about her being Secretary Steel and all. Her most favorite, her soul food is Pani Puri. So I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more about it. Welcome, ma'am, and the web stage is all yours.
Thank you so much, Rupinder, for such an interesting introduction. Like what people know of me to be a tough administrator, but this is other side of me. And basically, it is again coming from the concept of being systematic when we go about any action that we try to do. So today I am talking about secrets and delights of Indian cuisine and how this came during COVID. The basic problem that we all face when we are working together and everything is what to eat. And that is a question which is unsurmountable to answer. And everybody wonders, oh, same thing again and again, and why we are eating. So while I was working, I used to make a weekly menu and stick it in the kitchen so that your preparatory thing is done properly. So during COVID, I modified it to a month's work. And then when I started exploring the Indian cuisine, I realized from north to south and east to west, we have so many varieties. So why should we eat the same thing again? And when I started putting it in Excel sheet, to my delight, I could fill up all 365 days with no repeat of dish. So all 365 days, you can have a different meal every time when you are going. And why this is important, and I call it in Indian cuisine very important because Indian cuisine has evolved. And I always say the word evolution because we have gone into the nuances of everything. Let me take onion. So if I take onion, if onion you saute it, it tastes different. If you roast it, it tastes different. If you boil it with khichdi, it tastes very different. And if you fry it and then paste it, that is a secret of a biryani. So that is how a simple onion, how the food has evolved. That same onion is used in different forms, varies the taste completely, and that's the beauty of Indian cuisine as we are going ahead. So my whole concept works on a no to no zone. So you must eat everything, everything. So it's not that you say no to whites, that okay, no milk, no thing. And maybe from my background, when I was heading Dairy Federation, there used to be an article that oh, milk is bad for health. And then we used to stream number of articles that why milk is very good for your bones or milk products are very good for your bones. So that time maybe it was more a professional need, but now I understand that if you have milk products, like yogurt is the best probiotic that you can think of in your body. So COVID also made us conscious about immunity. So if you have a different varieties and if you eat everything in a daytime, so there is no to sweets. You must have something sweet to satiate yourself. You must have sour. You must have bitter. You must have all kinds of food. So if you look at this dish with the photo I have selected, it has got a huge variety. Everything is there. And therefore, the whole secret of the thing is you must eat. So the whole concept is that if you want to be healthy and if you want to go ahead with it, that is where you have to work upon and you have to eat everything. So what is the biggest problem we face today is what to eat. The most difficult question. All successful professional, male, female, children, everybody, what to eat is an unsurmountable question which we find it very, very difficult to answer. And then, of course, now that we have so much of exposure, we keep on thinking, oh, is it a diet meal? Is it a healthy meal? Is my stomach able to digest or am I allergic to it? But all this, the most prominent thing is it tasty? Is it a new dish? And then again, I have my sweet tooth. So, like I said, there is no zone. So, is it that I don't eat it at all? And then, is it acceptable? And most important, is it repeat recipe? Why have I said repeat recipe? For the simple reason, you must have found you end up eating the same thing. If you are invited the guest, your menu is quite predictable. If you are being invited by somebody, the menu, what you are going to eat there is predictable. If you are attending a marriage, the entire spread of the food is predictable. Even in a hotel, if you have a long stay and if you have a buffet for breakfast or if you have a buffet for lunch, it's all predictable. So if you have a long stay of 4 5 days, you end up having the same thing every day, day in and day out, exactly put at the same place. Only maybe the hot dish there may be a little variance. it is very, very necessary when we are doing it that we must have a variety as we are going ahead into this, and we must also work upon it that this is what is important to answer the question what we eat, and to answer the question that why should we eat the same thing again and again, day in and day out. Why can't we have a variety into it? And that is how we can go about it. So here, when we are making it, we realize that when we are putting 365 dish, I've just given you a snapshot of it. So you can have a different breakfast. So somebody, if you are South Indian and if you are fond of dosa, then why only dosa? You can have a pesarattu made of moong dal. And you see, when I use the word evolution of Indian food, then pesarattu you have it with garlic and imli chutney. So the accomplished what you have with the food is also so variant, so different. And then what is important is you must have it in a moderate quantity. So you have everything. And if you look at the health experts, what they say, instead of one heavy meal, you should have small meals, at least 5 to 6 meals in a day. And that is the healthiest way to do it. So therefore, when we are talking of 365, you must have a breakfast, you must have a lunch, at tea time, a snack, then you have a dinner, and during lunchtime, you take a sweet dish. So you avoid a sweet dish in the evening. So while we are making it, it is very important that how do you go about it? And then you want to be an expert. Like whenever a successful professional wants to be successful everywhere. So, we tried different dishes. So if you want to make a cold coffee, just add a spoonful of milk powder and you just see how creamy and nice and frothy it comes out to be. Similarly, like if you're health conscious, then I was talking about that, is it healthy? Is it going to go well with us? Is it going to be very fitting with us? Or is it that it is a lot of fats? So instead of using khova, if you use milk powder into any of your kheers or gajar ka halwa, so that gives an equally nice, creamy and healthy taste. So these are the tips which are very important, whereas you satisfy your calorie intake, you satisfy your health needs, you take care of these things and then move ahead. And if you look at it from the immunity point of view, then it is also equally important that in immunity, you eat everything. If I try to explain to you the different dishes which many of you are aware of, and what is most important in cooking, and which I found it actually very disgusting, that many of the cookery shows and many of the so-called known chefs, if you look at them cooking, they will start off in a clockwise or anti-clockwise direction of your masaldani and literally put everything. So they will put garam masala, they will put dhania powder, they will put amchur, they will put haldi, they'll put mirchi, they'll put methi dana, everything goes in every dish. It is like eating in a dhaba blindfolded and you can't make out what you are eating. So if you look at the Indian cuisine, the beauty is that only one spice has to be a major spice into your cooking. Just to tell you, if you're making just a pulao, then use only cloves. If you use cloves, the major aroma into your pulao is that of a clove. And it is not sort of superseded by others. And like I said before, for biryani, it is the fried onions paste and little bit of fried onions, what you layer it. That gives it a specific taste. Similarly, when you are using the masala, then it is entirely different. And if you are using the jeera, then it is very different. And I'm very sure many of you must be knowing, I like to tell you, that whenever you are using the fresh vegetables, gajar or greens or shimla mirch, you must have seen a pinch of sugar is put. Many people think that Marathi and Gujarati food is sweet because they put more than a pinch. But normally if you put a pinch, it does not decolor your food. So the presentation is equally important. The entire French cuisine is based on presentation. So in Indian cuisine, if you look at it, these are the tiny things which has evolved over a period of time, which makes your food very, very interesting as you are moving ahead with it. Let me take it to that why I say there is no zone when we are working upon it. The whole thing comes into a no zone for the simple reason that in your food you must have every day sweet, spicy, sour, bitter, salt meals in a day. Why this? You look at the Indian thali. On the left side of it, you have chutneys, the dry chutneys and the fresh chutneys. On the right side of it, you have vegetables. Then you have something like papad or some those kind of fried stuff. And then you have rice or chapati as depending on you. So why this design of a dish is there? Because you are satiating every taste bud of your tongue. And that is very important that you must satiate every taste bud of your thing, because unless until you do that, you are not going to develop immunity. By taking supplements, you are never going to be a strong person. By add-on foods or maybe only high protein diet or this thing is not a balanced food. What is a balanced food is you take each one of this in your day's menu so that you take care of it. And you must have seen that advertisement of a little kid, he is made to lick the lemon. It makes faces, it shows very bad, but it wants more. So your body likes the sour taste as well. That tingling sensation is, your tongue loves it. And that's how it goes. So it shows that your body actually needs all these tastes, and all your taste buds needs to be satiated. Then, when you're talking of satiation, how does you have a good immunity and your digestion is again going to come to you, that this satiation is going to come to you because you generate more saliva. So how do you generate more saliva? If there is an excitement at the dining table, it is not predictable. It is not something you are seeing it day in and day out. It is something entirely different. And this is what the Indian cuisine provides you. So when you are deciding on this menu of the Excel sheet, you will have a different menu every day. You will have entirely a different set of things put on the table every day. So it is not only that if you're cooking at home, even if you're going for dining out, don't go to the same restaurant and order the same menu every time. You try out the menu of the day and select a restaurant accordingly. If you are ordering food, same thing applies. So in a way, you end up having a different food every day when you're going into it. And for this, you have to go back to the roots. How many of you who are non-Bihari or non-Jharkhand people had heard of dhuska? I've never heard about it. We have heard of different kinds of chapatis and puris and everything. Now, this is a stuffed puri which is eaten as a part of a meal. It is not a snack. And that's what makes a difference. And so you have these interesting tiny food dishes, which makes the whole thing so exciting and so lovely. And if you're cooking, even if you think that your food is coming from a different level, or if it has come from a different part, then what is important is that you tune it to your taste. As we have tuned the pasta, as we have tuned the Chinese food, as we have created a Manchurian, so in a sense you can adjust it. So you cannot say, okay, I'm not very happy with the Punjabi food, or I'm not very happy with the South Indian food. A little touch here and there, you can match it to your taste, but don't mess around with the genuineness of it, because everything is this thing. Like I remember my mother-in-law, like I am a Maharashtrian but married a Punjabi. So my mother-in-law loved poha when I made it. But then, after a year or so, she told me, I don't like the way you make the poha. I made a fantastic poha. I added garlic to it and tomatoes to it and a little bit of adrak to it. So she made it what she thought it best to her taste. And that was her version of poha as you go about doing it. So what is very important is that you must, one, have a variety. Don't stick to the same food, and India is providing you with it. Indian cuisine is providing. It has evolved. Star anise, if you eat it, it is a part of garam masala. What better antioxidants, what better inflammatory things what you have. I am very sure you all know that garlic is something which sort of discourages your arteries to become thick. So it prevents arteries from thickening. So you just look at it. So somebody tells us, okay, you swallow garlic in the morning. No, that's not the way to do it. It should be a part of your meal. In the whole day, if 2 garlic cloves are put, then for the entire family it is more than enough. 1.5 teaspoon of haldi in your entire meal of the day, it takes care of the whole family's requirement of anti-inflammatory and antioxidant requirements of your body. Similarly, a citrus item in your meal takes care of your vitamin C. Then a milk product takes care of calcium and thickening and taking care of your bone health. So all these things are very important. And ghee I have highlighted here because there was a time when people used to say no to ghee. Now all the nutritionists, all the doctors say ghee is a must. It is the best lubricant you have and it is far better than oil. So come out of these fats, have a different kind of meals and go for different things. I can see some hand raised. So if there are some questions, we can take it now or I can proceed it further.
Ma'am, you can proceed. We'll take them in a bit, but really interesting session developing. But I'm also getting some comments that people are getting really hungry.
That's good because when you feel hungry, you know your juices are generated, and that juices is something which helps you for digestion. And 80% of your ill health comes from your bad digestion. If you have a good digestion, if your stomach is fine.
Ji ma'am, I have a question in between here. Just on the role of spices, you talked about cloves and star anise. How strong is the role of aromatic spices, and what is the role of spices in Indian food?
See, if you look at it, what attracted the entire world to India was spice. And that is what brought gold to ancient India, and that is how in the medieval period also, and made India rich. Because if you look at the world cuisine, the kind of variety of spices Indian cuisine has evolved and learnt about it, I think no other cuisine is able to offer anything matching to it. So if you look at it, ajwain, a small ajwain, like you add it to your matri or something, it makes a different taste and it is inflammatory. Then similarly, when you use star anise, and that is why I gave an example of masaldani. Don't put everything in everything, every vegetable that you're cooking. Enhance one spice. So if you are enhancing saffron in something, then don't put any other strong spice. If you are using a clove, then don't use garlic. It is very important that how you are matching these kind of different dishes when you are looking into it. It is very, very important that you are in the spice world. If you look at it, the dhania, coriander, in its dry form, in its green form, it really enhances your taste. And that's also again taking care of your health requirements. So if you look at it, it is very important that Indian spice, if you look at it, your garam masala, if you look at it, or in Bengal, what they call it as a panch puri, I think that there are 5 mixed spices, what they use it. That all makes a difference, but how it is going to help into your digestive system. Similarly, hing. When you use hing, it takes care of your stomach completely. Absolutely. Yeah. And how much you need? Less than a pinch. You need a tiny quantity of it when you're making any food dish and when you're going about it. So this kind of a balance is very, very important. Like here I have shown it the mushroom uttapam. So that's how you go to the variant. And you should have a mix in the whole day. So you have a uttapam, a South Indian for the breakfast, and you can have a misal Maharashtrian style misal bhat for the lunch. Right. Like you look at if you look at the spices, in rice also what varieties we have. In a lemon rice, you use more of a curry patta. And what you call it as a tamarind rice, of course, it's a tamarind pulp. In the dahi chawal, it is entirely different. What the South Indians make it, it's really really good. And then you pulao, it is entirely different. Biryani, it is entirely different. Same applies to the paratha. Like when I make parathas, again, you add variety. So today, if you decide that okay, your meal is going to be paratha, don't make same paratha. You're going to have 3 parathas. Don't eat the same aloo paratha or muli paratha, all the 3 of them. So make one muli paratha, one gobi paratha, one aloo paratha, one pyaj paratha, one green chili paratha. So in the sense, if anybody is going to have 3, they have a variety. The efforts are same. But then you make it very interesting when you're sitting, the family is sitting on a dining table, that oh, I am going to have a chili paratha and I am going to have a garlic paratha, or I am having a gobi paratha. So and it's every second the second round is entirely different when you're working upon it. So these are the things when you have to work upon and then sort of go for it.
Viewers, I must say and clarify, therefore, for you that when we say spices in India, spice doesn't just mean the chili. The variety
No.
in spices is so immense. And it's not just that they are used for flavoring, that of course is one role that the spices play, but they also have a very scientific reason on why they are added. Either they will add to digestion, or they will be doing something in enabling the body to absorb the nutrients of a certain food. So that's the wisdom of spices. I mean, we could do a whole webinar, and not just one, many more on spices alone in India. So I think that's the wealth. From the tourism perspective, and if all of you are wondering, why are we doing foods today? I would like to share with all of you that across India, there is so much variety in food, and dedicated food trail tours are available. They are available if you go to the net. You will find so many people who will actually handhold you and will walk you through the street food. Some very, very cordon bleu chefs are also there. So you have the entire spectrum. You have the little khomcha wala, the reda wala doing one of the finest bread pakoras or mirchi pakoras. But you also have the very, very high and extremely sophisticated, very time consuming kind of cuisine. But that's India. And for us in India, I think the food trail, the cuisine is a very intrinsic part of tourism's experience. And what is also really encouraging is that in all these places that if you plan to visit and do visit them, you can actually join workshops where you can learn to cook. There are many people doing workshops, and that also brings me to another element of tourism in the current, particularly post COVID times, is that the homestays have become so popular because everybody wants to go and stay in the other person's home and taste the way they actually cook. So the parantha that will get done in Mrs. Sharma's home will be very different from mine. It will be aloo parantha, but it'll have her unique something she will do to it, which will be different from my parantha, and my neighbors will be different. If you have 10 different people doing 10 different aloo paranthas, believe me, in India, you are spoiled for choice. So I just wanted to remind everybody that it's a good time to start thinking of traveling. COVID is gradually going behind us. We, of course, do need to keep wearing our mask, do gas ki duri, keep washing your hands, but do start traveling and start tasting the amazing foods of India. Ma'am.
Very rightly said, Rupinder, that when we talk of tourism, food is a part of tourism because any tourist advertisement across the globe, if you see, they will also have a chapter on places to eat and dishes to try. So this is something very much a part and parcel of visiting to the different places. And when you're doing, do try because local food makes a difference. If I give you an example, when we were in Bhopal, we are a family of four, parents and me and my brother. We used to consume 2 quintals of wheat and 1 quintal of rice in the whole year. And the moment my father got posted in Hyderabad, it just reversed. We started consuming 2 quintals of rice and 1 quintal of wheat because the climate, the atmosphere, your consumption pattern, all that has an impact. So if you are in southern India, you will love to have imli and other things into your food. The moment you come to North India, you want more quantity of ghee and more stronger food as you are working upon it. So climate makes a difference, dishes makes a difference, and I'm very sure that every state, like in India, they say every kilometer there is a change of taste. Like Ravinder rightly said, it's not just a kilometer; it's every household. The same item, it is made in a different way. And spices, it is what you said is perfectly right because India spices, they say, oh, it's hot. No, 80% of the Indians don't eat hot food. It is the spice enhancer food. That is what we all eat. And that is the kind of enhancement we try. And that's why I say in India, it is known as Pak Kala. It is art of cooking. And that is the word that is being used. That it is not just cooking, it is an art of cooking. And art means that you take care of its aroma, you take care of the spice, you take care of the highlight, you take care of the look and feel of it, you take care of what is seasonal and what is right at that moment of time. All that incorporates in the Indian cuisine if you look at it from the Pakkala point of view. And that is what it sort of works upon it. And that Pakkala is something which is so unique to India. It's so exciting that when you look at it, like you mentioned, my soul food is pani puri. In fact, lockdown after 2 months, I was very uncomfortable not having pani puri, and tried to experiment in the kitchen with my house help, and we managed to make excellent pani puris at home. And thanks to these days on YouTube, and there is a data about it that the maximum hits on the YouTube during COVID lockdown was recipe videos. People were trying, people were experimenting, people were trying to eat, and it is very important. I'm never happy when people say, I don't know how to cook. Why? If you love to eat, you must know, for the simple reason each one of us has a different taste and we like to match it to that taste. And that's why it is very important to have some basic knowledge so that you are not stuck and you are able to manage.
Ma'am, may I
And
intervene and ask you to narrate the story that you were telling me before the webinar about the boy who actually
oh,
influenced
yes.
you?
How
Yeah.
I got into cooking is a very interesting thing. Like my parents, and we had very good family friends, and there were two brothers. And in my house, I was one girl and one boy. A very close knit friends of my parents. So I think I was in class 9th or 10th. At that time, my parents, as they used to always visit them, were visiting them. And in the drawing room, both the parents were sitting and talking. And it was this elder boy who came with nicely laid sandwiches and tea and everything. And suddenly it dawned on my mother that, oh, my daughter, she doesn't know a thing. She can't even make a tea. And it's time that I introduce her to kitchen. Otherwise, all along she said, abhi choti hai, kind of a thing. And that's how I was introduced to the kitchen. And then I started enjoying it. And of course, at that time, regular cooking was, of course, miles apart from my. But then I started taking interest in baking, trying out. So I think my expertise was spicy chocolate honey cake. That used to be my specialty. And I still remember once I baked two cakes because my brother was going to the hostel for his engineering, and I baked it in the evening and put it on the table, and we all went to our respective rooms to push off to sleep. Morning when I got up, I saw only crumbles of cake on the plate. So I was thinking my mother must have cut and packed it and everything. And mother thought I might have done it. Then we realized no, my brother got up in the night to study and slowly he pounded off both the cakes. And that's what happened. So, in the sense, if you look at it, then my interests were only on the special things, not the routine things. That I used to think, no, that's not what I'm going to do. But then what I realized that even though I was in a service when you had house help to do the cooking, unless until you know the cooking, you will have to eat what they know. But if you know the cooking, you can really teach them what you want to eat and how you want to eat, so that you will get it exactly the way you want it to be. So therefore, the basic knowledge of cooking, it is a must, whether boy or a girl, you must have it. You must understand these nuances. And if you look at the nuances, you must have seen in Indian cuisine, dum has a very different nuances. Then what you salt may has a very different nuances. What you steam has a very different nuances. So all this adds to the taste. So whether you're making a dokla or whether you're making with besan a pakoda or whether you're making something else, the treatment is entirely different for the same basic product. And that is why it is very important that this pak kala, what you talk in the Indian cuisine, which is very good for health, seasonal, climate suited, it changes with the change of weather, and brilliant use of different spices when you're working upon it. So try to understand these nuances of the different spices so that you enjoy your food and enhance that flavor when it comes up and it comes out very, very strong. It is very important, and do experiment, do walk about it. Abroad, I've seen, on the cuisine shows, you have this eggplant. So I used to wonder what is thing eggplant, and we call it bengan bekod, like something that doesn't have. But you see the amount of varieties you can make with the bekod. So you can have a rice, what you call vange bhat, or you can have a bharta, or you can have a vegetable, or you can have slice, and even international cuisine, which is the Italian way of making slice of brinjal and then in a tomato or red syrup. That is what makes a difference. And most important is that it is always said the family which eats together stay together. So for eating together, the dining table has to be an exciting place. Whether you are serving the guests, the people should look forward of visiting you because they must be thinking that, oh, something new is going to be served today to us on the table. Same applies to the family. Same applies when you are visiting them. And everybody will then start doing and experimenting so that you don't end up a known, predictable kind of a menu, whether you are eating at home or you're going anywhere. So you have to look after. And for gaining immunity, it is very, very important that each spice has to enter your stomach. It has to go at the right time, at the right place. In winters, dalchini and badi elaichi is going to make a difference. In summer, you are going to avoid it. So that warms up your body. Or your kahwa, if you kahwa of the Kashmir, it warms up your body completely. Dry fruits, it warms up your body. And what you call it as a different seed, sat magaj, what is commonly known as, that is best for the immunity and taking care of the protein requirements of your body. So, in a sense, this is what actually is making a difference when you are experimenting. Now, this is another slide I'm just putting it. See, that it is something very surprising and which I've started now noticing it in even in the marriages. The Sindhi, as dal dhokli, they call it. It is something very different, something we have not heard of, and now it has become a part of the marriage display of the food. So you have a different way of Sindhi way of doing it, and in this 365 things, we ended up having lots of dishes. So what we realized from while talking to the health experts that it is very important that non-vegetarian should be restricted to two only in a day. So a snack and maybe one meal. Rest of it has to be vegetarian. If you look at it internationally, a non-veg is always served with lots of salads, lots of greens, lots of other things. But Indian style of cooking doesn't go accordingly. So therefore, it is very important that you restrict your non-veg to one meal and one snack, and rest to be vegetarian for those who love non-veg. Those who are vegetarian, of course, then everything is there, so you can go ahead and have that. And if you look at the tricks of the trade, like I told you about the milk powder, or I told you about the similarly, if you want it fluffy and you don't have maida, then what we have written here, the pancake flour is good enough to make your fluffy things, whatever you are trying to fry or make pakoras or bread pakoda, what you mentioned. So all that makes a lot of difference when you're eating it or when you're spreading over these varieties and enjoying these food. And what is most important in the Indian cuisine is that if you look at it, and what you rightly said, it does not mean hot chili. It does not mean hot chili at all. If you must have seen bedami, kachori, and uske saath that aloo ka sabji, that aloo ka sabji literally has very little spice into it. It is just jeera ka chok and tomato so well blended that it adds a very wonderful taste. Very, very wonderful taste. Similarly, this litti chokha, the chokha, if you see, what does it have? Nothing. Very, very little spice into it. Very little. But the way the flavors are enhanced, it makes the whole difference. So these are the things which you must learn to enjoy. If we have an access to Indian cuisine and the whole world, like I've seen all foreign visitors, they love the Indian spreads. They love the Indian spread. And in fact, when I was in UK, I literally did a demonstration of Indian curry. And they were really amazed how we play with the spices, how we try out with the different spices. And that is what makes a difference. And that's how you did.
I'm sure you'll agree with all your travels that some of the most popular restaurants overseas are the Indian restaurants. They always have a queue.
Very true. And Indian restaurants also, what we have exposed to the world till date is very limited. So you have a butter chicken, or you have a chicken tikka, or you have that masala, paneer masala, or you have a South Indian. Right. The other kinds of cuisines are now slowly getting exposed to different people. Even in India, now you have a Rajasthani thali, and you have a Maharashtrian restaurant, and you have other restaurant. And if you see the Indian way of eating, we don't believe in dessert. Sweet is a part of our meal. So either we have laddu as a snack, or you will have amras roti or shrikand puri or kheer puri, which becomes like a part of the meal. So it's not that you have it at the end of your meal as a dessert. So in a way, it's again satisfying all your tastes when you're going about it, and that's what makes a difference. So here, what we try to do for 365 is we have 365 breakfast items, and let me tell you, it does not mean 5 kinds of dosa spread over 5 days. No. So dosa is one item, whether you are having with puri or masala dosa or sada dosa. It's one item. But yes, pesarattu will be another item and uttapa will be a third item. That kind of a thing. And similarly, we have 365 lunch, we have tea time snacks. And tea time snack is very important. See, even in the office, if you're working and you're having a tea, along with that maybe a small cupcake, or maybe just one pakoda, or maybe your murukku kind of a thing, chakli kind of a thing, if you have. So 365 such items are listed. Similarly, you have listed for your dinner and dessert, and it is balanced out in a day's menu. So, in the sense, if you are going to have on a big holiday, maybe like today, ragda practice for your tea time, then dinner is only salad. So that is how in this also we are trying to distribute it and try to put it in an Instagram so that you don't have to make effort of finding 365. There is something available to you. Just go to the Instagram and put in the next line, and then you make your own menu by trying to mix and match by using this. And like I said, non-vegetarians only 2 meals, that's what expert says. So we have ended up with 2555 dishes, and out of this 90% are Indian dishes, and the 10% is what India has adapted. So you have that pizza advertisement, no, कि मेरे पिज्जा में पनीर है, और या मेरे पिज्जा में chicken tikka है, that kind of a thing. Or even your pasta, you have pastas are there, different kinds, and then you have this. You were talking about it, like we have. Generally, people think we have only three curries. That is the red curry, the white curry, and then you have tomato-based curry. No, it's just by removing one spice or adding one spice, the whole thing changes in the way we make our curries. And that is just jeera aloo. Just think about a jeera aloo. Just not nothing. It is just ghee, jeera, maybe green chilies, and your aloo, and you see what difference it makes. And we have tried to add tips into it when we are going. Even Lebanese food, if you look at it, it has a great spread for vegetarians also. So your bagan ka bharta in a different form comes in the Lebanese food, and that is what makes a whole difference. And that is how we are enjoying for the food lovers. So you can visit the Instagram to have a peep into this menu to avoid the hard work. We have already, in fact, when I made the slide, it was 22 weeks, but now we have entered the 24th week of the 52 weeks. And then you make your own menu. You make your own menu. You start it off. Why I'm talking about trying out different dish every day is that when you look at our older generation, they were no into no zone. They used to eat ghee, they used to eat makan, they used to eat all kinds of food, fried food, non-fried food, but lot of hard labor. Now you may be doing some exercise, so you can reduce the quantity, but do satiate. Don't avoid supplements. The best thing is to have it in a natural form, to have right thing in the right season, to have fresh as much as possible, to have it in lesser quantity. See, a person needs 1200, 1250 calories per day if you are not into a very active work. Otherwise, 2400 calories. So that many calories if you are having, and if you spread and satiate each of your tastes, it takes care of your body requirements. It takes care of all the vitamins, all the antioxidants, all the stomach cleaners and everything into your body. It keeps you healthy. And definitely, the moment you are healthy, you are energetic, you are able to contribute, and then you feel proud of what India has offered. And again, I repeat, the Pak Kala, because it is the art of cooking which India's one of the biggest gift, like yoga, to the entire world. Brilliant evolution of how the spices are used and what difference it makes into our taste and into our feeling. So I think I'll stop at this point and take the questions, and if need be, then we can again go and spread upon it. Right?
Yeah, ma'am, I think it's been a really, really interesting session, and I would highly recommend and support what has been brought out in terms of vocal for local. I think, in fact, recently the Honorable Prime Minister has been mentioning about vocal for local in a different context, but here in food, how relevant is vocal for local? Not only in terms of supporting the local communities, but also in terms of the food value. You eat what is available locally and you avoid all the preservatives and the cold storage chains I think when we were all growing up, there was so much about seasonality and food, and today you get everything through the year. So there is something to think about, I think, in that, in sticking to foods that are locally available in a particular season. I think, and there's so much about fresh cooking in Indian food, as you could see in the various options that were being thrown up, that each of us could give that individual touch to it and also make it extremely fresh. In terms of what all could you be doing in tourism, again, this is just, the presentation is to actually literally whet your appetite, because I'm sure you're all getting hungry. But if you were to travel in India, I think if you started from the north of India, you could go to Amritsar and have lassi and kulcha and the food delights in Amritsar. I think most of us know about it. You come down to Delhi, the chaat in Delhi. You go back to Himachal, the Himachali cuisine is entirely different. You go to Jammu Kashmir, the food is so, the Wazwan cooking is so different. If you came down to Hyderabadi biryani, I think who doesn't know about it? If you went to Kolkata, I'm sure we all know we are spoiled for food there with cham cham, rasagullas, matir jhol, and Madam mentioned about the eggplant, so the begun bhaja. And if you came down to Varanasi, dum aloo, bati chokha, Banarsi sharbat, thandai, Lucknow, the kebabs just to die for, Agra, who doesn't know the petha? The list just goes on and on. But then if you went to Gujarat, it's entirely different. There is a very satiny khandvi, there's a bhakri, mirchi bhajia. Go back to Bombay, and who misses Bombay's vada pav when you are there? So I think what has been mentioned, that the world has only just about starting to see the few things that we have carried to the world, and there's so much to be showcased, not only to people from overseas, but to our own selves. For somebody living in the north of India, eating anything from the other parts of India is entirely different. The content totally changes, the cooking style changes. If you went to the northeast, there's a laksa, there's a tukka, there's a keli chana, there's a khar in Assam, there's a pitha, fish tenga, and so many notions get dispelled. Like one notion that got dispelled with the session today was that when we say Indian food and everybody's worried, oh, it's going to be hot. No, it's going to be tasteful, it's going to be flavorful. That it's going to be only vegetarian. No. I think if we see a large part of India has all options in vegetarian and in non-vegetarian, and that's a myth one would really want to dispel, because the moment you think of going to the northeast, and when we did a session on Northeast, Madam, I must share this with you. Most people had this very apprehensive concern that, oh, would we be getting vegetarian food? And there are so many things that they have there. Similarly, if you went to places which you thought were more focused on vegetarian, you'd be surprised with the recipes that exist for chicken, mutton, and fish, and all that goes into seafood in Goa, right? So, coming to the questions that are being asked, and there are quite a few, the session I can see has been received very well. We are getting some very good feedback. Ma'am, there's a question that what is your opinion about some items which are considered contradictory, like non-vegetarian and milk?
See, some are myths because there is a big myth that if you have fish and milk together, it will cause change of color of your skin. You get those white patches. But no scientific knowledge has come along with that. Similarly, pickle and yogurt. People say that you should not have. What is needed is that while cooking, you see the kurma has got yogurt into it. While cooking kurma, you add yogurt into it.
Mm-hmm.
But in a non-veg cooking, you don't add milk directly. So, in a sense, if there is a spacing between you having a non-veg and having a milk dessert, spacing of 5-10 minutes, there's absolutely no use. And when you are having these meals together or the combinations when you're working together, Indian combinations are worked in such a beautiful way that you are able to sort of have a different dish. You will have a chutney, so you have a morsel of a chutney, and then you have a morsel of something different. So, in a sense, like if you look at the English French cuisine, in a good sophisticated restaurant, they will give you a mouth cleaner after dish. Basically, it is to clean up your tongue to again enjoy the new dish. So, exactly the same way it works when we switch over from one dish to the other. That is what is very important. So, these are basically myths. There is no scientific basis to it when you are having it.
We have a viewer joining in from Istanbul, and
Yeah.
Muhammad Samir Pathan. He has a question that he says, "I'm living in Istanbul where people are looked down for eating fried and sweet foods." So I think that's about modern living today. We probably don't do enough workout and then get worried about the ghee part of it. Ma'am, what is your thought on that?
See, like I said, there is no zone. This look down upon is also a fad which is of maybe 2 decades old, right? Okay, so you should not have a sweet or you should not have a fried food. You should have, but moderate quantity. So it is not that your entire meal is fried. No. In a snack, if you have two items, two tiny items of fried food, good enough for you. And that is where it has to stop. Same applies to the sweet dish. So you reduce the size. Like I don't like milk, drinking milk just like that. So in a sense, you must have seen those Chinese tiny cups what you have with a tiny pot. So in our family it's a family joke. If that is the cup, I will prefer to have milk if I have to drink. So, jokes apart, you must reduce the size of your vessel in which you are going to take a sweet. So you take a smaller variety of sweet, but do eat sweet. So there is nothing looking down upon as far as you burn your fats. It's good enough.
Right. And
That
I think
takes
that was
care.
your starting point, ma'am, where you said, I think no
Yes.
to no, right? You
Yeah.
just have
No.
to.
There is no zone. So there is nothing like no zone. It has to be there. And this person in Istanbul is looking down upon is a new fad. Like you look at my age as kids, I think there used to be always a dabba of laddus or some sweet lying around in the house where we used to eat all of them. And my mother, who is 88, during lunchtime she needs a sweet every day. So in winters we give her methi ka, that is fenugreek laddus, and this what you call it, and that is excellent for the bones. Excellent for the bones. So when you
I
have
think, ma'am, we would like to remind the viewers that when we talk sweet, viewers, sweet is not only about sugar, the way we have sugar. The use of molasses, the use of jaggery,
correct.
so I think there is a lot of wisdom to be taken back from the earlier times, especially in India. We have this whole, line of Ayurvedic cooking, the Vedic wisdom, and how clarified butter or ghee, as we call it, desi ghee, how important it is. Because if you didn't have the fats, how are you going to even digest the foods? And so there's wisdom in that thali that gets done where there is something sour, there are fats, there are carbohydrates, there are proteins. But as she rightly said, you should know how to balance it. I mean, you probably don't need to be a glutton, but have a little of everything, and that way you enjoy your food more. Ma'am, there's a question on the foods. Sunil Kumar Arya has a question. What is your opinion on the foods tasir in Indian cuisine?
Yes, tasir is very scientific. It has its origin in the Ayurveda because what you say is like a banana. If you have a banana in the cold winter evening, late evening, you're bound to have a running nose the next day. But if you badly want to have a banana, have it in the afternoon. Or sprinkle it. Something very interesting. One of the Ayurvedic doctors told me that sprinkle it with mustard powder. Sprinkle your ripe banana with mustard powder and have it. It will balance out the tasir. So there is a tasir in a food. That is very important, and that's what we use the word seasonal. What is right for a season? So, like I said, you will love to have a dahi chawal tadke wala during summer, but in winters it's a complete no-no zone. So you're not having it in winters. So that is what makes a difference. So you will love to have in winter a hot biryani, whether vegetarian or non-vegetarian. So tasir is very important, and tasir has Ayurvedic scientific principles. So it is not some quackery or it is not hocus pocus. It is very scientific. So each food has its tasir, and therefore it is very important to have it as per the tasir.
Right. And so there's a related question from Subhash Das who says, can curd be consumed in both the meals in severe cold places? I think it's.
Curd is you must have seen this yogurt. Yogurt suddenly has become very popular and fashionable. What is it? It's a way of the curd, isn't it? So curd is very good for you. Have it in the afternoon in winters if you want to have it. See, this afternoon and evening makes a lot of difference for these kind of foods. And if you and don't have a khatta curd. You have the normal curd, which has not become sour. And just again, the quantity is the trick of the trade. So have a little quantity. Like I take yogurt every day in my lunch. I mean, it's a must. So whether it's winter, even when I'm abroad, I love to have yogurt at least one time a day.
Right. So there is someone's comment coming. Mihir, he is saying you need to balance the cold and the hot ingredients. And considering that Mihir is a professional chef, I think that's good wisdom. Ma'am, Mihir has a question. He mentions Mihir Deshpande that he's a professional chef. That could you let me know what we could do for good tourism, food tourism? So, ma'am, you've worked in Madhya Pradesh, you've grown up in Madhya Pradesh, and then later worked there, and then you also went to college in Hyderabad, and you traveled around the world. As somebody who's deeply interested in a subject, and also as somebody who's probably enjoyed tourism around the world, what would you recommend should India be doing at this point when we should be taking the India story to the world?
I totally agree, and a very good question by Mihir because I have a book, Tour France from Vineyard to Vineyard. Now think about it. So it is not talking of anything of France, but only wine in that particular book, so that you travel from vineyard to vineyard and you find out what different it is. So like that in tourism, it is very important that you travel India from food joints to food joints. So each state and each state is so unique, so unique. What Rupinder you rightly listed out of different corners of the country, it changes completely. What is Kerala food is not what is Tamil food, and what is Tamil food is not Andhra food. Like in Hyderabad, my mirchi bhaji, what we make is very different from the mirchi bhaji of Rajasthan. So everywhere, it's a different way of treatment. So it is very important that as a tourist guide, you can have a food guide for that particular place, for that particular taste. So it's not that you have same chole bhature in Agra and same chole bhature in Delhi and same chole bhature in Punjab. No. If you are in Agra, then it has to be a different food guide, and if you are in Delhi, a different food guide, and if you are in Hyderabad, it's entirely a different food guide. I mean, you can't miss out the biryani, and if you are a non-vegetarian, the halim, what you get there. So it has to be entirely different when you are traveling around. And if you are traveling in Kerala, then it has to be an entirely different food variety. So this food guide can become, and like he himself is a chef, it is very important that you do this uniqueness. And that uniqueness is presented to all the tourists which are visiting. And that is what, like you have a unique place, you have a unique food guide for that particular place. And that,
Absolutely.
that, that will really make the visitor much more interested because food is a guiding factor. Like my son and my niece, whenever we plan a family holiday, the first thing they do is to map eat food. So it is a driving force. So let us not deny that. Let us not.
Absolutely. I think food is so essential, not only for filling their belly, but to satiate the psychological need for food. And it goes back all the way to the Paleolithic age. I mean, from the moment that humanity has existed in whatever form, even when we were not evolved as the humans that we are today, everybody eats. Animals also eat. Plants also eat. Everyone who has to live and survive has to eat. And that's where the delight of Indian food, the sheer variety in the ingredients, in the spices, in the styles of cooking is just so incredible. And that's why, and thanks, ma'am, for mentioning about this, the food guide thing. I must again exhort everyone to go back to the program that the ministry has started running. The government of India has come up with the Incredible India Tourist Facilitator certification program. That's the heart and the soul of this program. When the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji wanted each Indian to develop the spirit of enterprise, that's the philosophy behind that program. And that's why we say enroll in that program, become a local host. Because the way you can take somebody to have that pakora behind in your lane, that little aloo ki tikki, that little laksa, the way that chola bhatura is eaten, or the way mirchi bhajia is eaten is so different in your area. And that's why देखते रहिए और दिखाते रहिए अपना सुंदर अतुल्य भारत is the philosophy and the thought behind the program that we bring to all of you. We want all of you to bring out your India to fellow Indians and to travelers from across the world. So at that point, I think I am, as always, out of time. We have a short movie which we will see now. And after that, I shall thank Madam Sharma and also tell you where are we going to take you next week. Yeah, this it's an endless story. So thank you so much, Madam Sharma. It's been a pleasure. It's a very different subject we've taken up today and organized in a different way. And I must congratulate you for evoking a lot of interest in all the viewers and listeners of our program. Thanks for being with us, ma'am.
Thank you. Your film has had made me hungry now, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And viewers, we are not going to leave the food trail for now because on the next Saturday, we are again going to take you on the food trail and we're going to take you to Kolkata. Kolkata spoils you for choices, whether it's the sweets, as I already mentioned, the sandesh and the rasgullas, but also for the vegetarian food, the mocha chop, and what else, the dal. Of course, we all know about macher jhol, but there's so much else that goes into Bengali food. So we are going to take you to Kolkata on the food trail. So remain with us. Do eat today, but remain hungry for next Saturday as we take you on this lovely food trail. So thank you, viewers. Thank you, NEGD. Thank you, everyone who's supporting us in our initiative of Dekho Apna Desh. Do start traveling, as I said, but do take care. We need to be safe. The vaccine is round the corner. There is so much excitement building up. We do hope the world will once again be a safe place. And as the new year sets in 2021, we wish you a very, very happy new year, because when we join in next Saturday, it will already be New Year's. So have a wonderful closure to 2021, and let's welcome 2021 as a welcome, and 2020 is the bye bye time. It's been a tough year. It's been a tough and a challenging year, but we are happy that as humanity we've managed to deal with one of the most difficult challenges that all of us must have seen in our lifetimes. And let's pray for good health and cheer for everyone. So see you next Saturday, 11 a.m. once again on the food trail from Kolkata. Thank you once again, everyone. Namaste.